Welcome to Good Screenwriting. I'm Trevor Meyer, and today we're going to talk about John Wick, Chapter 2. Now, this movie got better reviews than the first one, which is saying a lot. That the first one got really good reviews for such a small, independent action film, it didn't really draw my attention until the sequel came out, which proves that sequels are really the best marketing, because as soon as a sequel comes out, people are like, "Hey, what's John Wick? I've never seen the first one." So they go back and watch it, and I did. And I love John Wick, the first one. I love the first one. Um, Within the first week, I think I watched it 3 times. So I went out, bought it, watched it, then I watched it again, then I watched it again. I think in a 3 week period, I'd watched it like 7 times. Um, and it was just so unique. It was so original. They had a low budget, so they had to think creatively about how they were going to pull off the action and the character stuff. And it feels like an indie movie, you know? If you've ever seen an independent film, it feels like that. And they add this awesome action and stunt work, and there's not a lot of CGI in it. It's mostly practical effects, which I think is the big key to action. I don't think you get points for computer animated action. I think you get points for stunts, real stunts with real physical objects. All right. Uh, the soundtrack was great. The acting was great. And it was really, really funny. I mean, there were a couple of sad parts, but it was really a lot of fun. And it had this deep universe of assassins, that you just go deeper and deeper, and there's this mystery to it because they don't explain anything. They don't give you any exposition or anything, so they just throw you in, and all of a sudden you go deeper and deeper into this secret underworld of assassins, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really cool. And, kind of emotional too. Now you get to the second one, and they had a bigger budget, and the action sequences are bigger. It's more fun. Maybe not more fun, but there's bigger action and more development into John Wick's character, more into the world of these assassins. They go international this time. He goes to Rome. He's dealing with, instead of Russian bad guys, he's dealing with Italian bad guys. So in many ways, you could say that the second one is bigger and better than the first one. But the weird thing about this is that, yes, the first one got great reviews, and the second one got even better reviews, and yet I've only seen this movie with 2 other people, and uh, I think, and both of them think, that the first one is better, hands down. Uh, I like the first one better, and the 2 people I saw it with like the first one better. So I can't really explain why so many people like the second one better, other than to say that it seems that most people don't focus on the story. They're focusing on the action. And on that level, the action is bigger and better and more intense than the first one. All right. But in terms of uniqueness and character and, all the stuff I'm interested in as a screenwriter, um, I actually like the first one better. So is that to say anything bad about the second one? No, not really. I do feel that when they got more money, they went bigger with the action and sort of became more generic, I guess. It starts to feel more like a James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible movie or a Fast and Furious movie, in that the more money they have, it's almost like the more generic it gets. It's the first one. You put John Wick in a room full of 10 guys, and he has to kill all of them, and it gets creative because it all happens in his house. And you get a couple of things in a nightclub where he has to kill a few people, or a hotel room fight with another assassin, or this kind of demolition derby car chase thing at the end of it. And each sequence really means something because they were spending all the money they had on them. And I think we get almost more action in the first 10 minutes of John Wick Chapter 2 than we got in the whole first movie. And then it just keeps going. So I almost feel like it's getting more Hollywood. It's getting more action blockbustery and less indie now that they have more resources. Nothing wrong with that. The action's fantastic. I really like that indie feel of the first one. So, and what's really interesting is that the thing I liked about the first one was that they didn't explain anything. So there's this mystery. You know, you get thrown into this world that you don't understand. You get little glimpses of an explanation without really getting an exposition dump. And then one of the first things they do in the second one is they have the bad guy show up to John Wick's house and give an exposition dump and say, you know what this is? You know, this thing that we both know, but I'm going to say anyway for the benefit of the audience so that they understand the plot of the movie. You know, it's the kind of thing the first one avoided so well. But the second one, unfortunately, falls into that trap, which is here's a bunch of information the audience needs to know in order to understand the story. You know, so again, it's not a bad movie. I like it. The first one I give a 5 out of 5. Second one I give a 4 out of 5. I love the first one. Like the second one. First one's great. Second one's good. And I'll issue a spoiler alert right now. Spoiler alert. If you don't want any spoilers, I'll say go check out John Wick Chapter 2, especially if you've seen the first one. Now, watch the first one first. This movie does work as a standalone, but it makes a lot more sense if you see the first one. All right? This is called Chapter 2 for a reason. It takes place almost immediately after the first one. So, you know, it's sort of like going from Rocky to Rocky 2 to Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Rocky 5, Back to the Future Part 2, Back to the Future Part 3, in that this links up with the first one. So if you were to like pull out the credits in between them, you could actually just run these back to back and it would make one movie. So that's cool. I like that. So see the first one first. And if you like that one, check out this one. I love the first one, like the second one. First one I give a 5 out of 5. Second one I give a 4 out of 5. So that being said, let's go into spoiler territory. This movie ends with a setup for John Wick Chapter 3. So I don't know if they're going to do any more past that. They could do like 20 of these. This could be the next James Bond franchise, except for one thing. Okay, look, Keanu Reeves is John Wick. Now, you could say, like before, Sean Connery is James Bond. Fair enough. But if you go watch the behind-the-scenes features on these movies, Keanu Reeves is so committed to the physical side of John Wick, I don't see anyone duplicating that. Ever. Ever. Um, it's so ingrained in who he is. It's almost like, okay, it's like a Bruce Lee movie, all right? You don't keep a Bruce Lee series going after Bruce Lee dies. It's just, you're not going to replace him. He is who he is. Um, Again, like, if it's something like a Clint Eastwood movie, like Dirty Harry, you can swap out another actor for Clint Eastwood, and it may not be as iconic, but they could pull off the role because it's really an acting thing. All right? This is acting, but the physical side of it, like, if you were to replace it with an actor who does the character stuff and a stunt double who does the action, you would lose what makes these movies so good, which is Keanu Reeves is doing 90% of his own stunts, and he stays in camera for these long, long takes of action stuff. All right, so I don't see this series continuing beyond Keanu Reeves, and he's 52. I just looked this up. He's 52 years old right now, so I don't even see him carrying on with the character for too much longer. So if I were them, I would do a trilogy and stop. All right, and just let it stand alone because again, with Jason Bourne, you can train a new actor, you can get a stunt double, you can. They even did kind of. Um, Not to play Jason Bourne, but they had Jeremy Renner doing a similar type character in the Bourne Legacy. So, uh, if they really want to invest in just the character and keep the series going, I mean, I've seen action like this. I mean, it's like Daniel Craig in James Bond. He has a stunt double, and they do a pretty good job cutting. But the whole point is that in the John Wick movies, they don't cut away from the actor to go to a stunt double. They keep the camera rolling. So to continue this series beyond Keanu Reeves, to find that unique, because this series was tailor made for him. All right, they built the character around him. He was so ingrained in the creation of this film that I don't see a new director taking over. I don't see a new writer maybe a new writer. I don't know. But I don't see a new actor taking on this lead role. So if they wanted to keep going, you know how I love series. I love like that James Bond has gone on for 50 years and is like, look, James Bond on average has produced a new film every 2 years for the last half century. All right, it's insane. It's insane that they are able to do that many James Bond movies, and it's been going on for 50 years, over 50 years, and they got a new James Bond movie every couple of years. They got a new James Bond movie. Um, so I love that. I love the idea that you can pass the torch and just keep going with a familiar character. It's like a TV show on a grand scale. Um, but this is one role where if you were to recast it, you would lose so much. Like, if you were to make this Jason Statham, it wouldn't be John Wick. If you were to make this Matt Damon, it wouldn't be John Wick. If you were to make this um, Hugh Jackman, it's a reasonable thing, but it's not. Look, and the other thing is James Bond is based on a book. All right, James Bond is based on a literary character, so the idea that multiple people could play him is not out of the question. But yeah, I think this is a setup for a trilogy, and they need to stop there and give the character some closure because in the first one, he's retired and he comes back for revenge. And then he's out. He's done. He wants to be done in the second one. And then he gets pulled in by this thing called a marker. And I like that they go deeper into the mythology of the first movie, which is John Wick was able to retire because he pulled off an impossible task for Vigo, the Russian mobster. And the impossible task is what allowed him freedom from his life of being an assassin. So we find out that he was only able to pull off that impossible task with the help of this main villain from the second movie, who has what they call a marker, which is basically a blood oath, which is John Wick owes him a favor. It's an IOU. It's I helped you. Now I'm calling in my favor. And John Wick's like, no, don't want to do it. Can't do it. I'm not that guy anymore. And then you get that moment from the trailer where the bad guy says, you're always that guy. And John has to go back and he has to complete one more task. He gets double crossed, and every assassin in New York is after John, and he's got to fight them all, and he's got to defeat the bad guy and all that. And he's got to reach deep down to these resources that are even underground for the underground assassins, you know? That's where you get Lawrence Fishburne's character, the Bowery King. So all of that ends with John Wick breaking the one rule that we're not supposed to break. He kills the main bad guy in the Continental, which is against the rules. The Continental is a hotel, a safe ground for assassins where no business can be conducted. It's sanctuary. It's holy ground. nobody can get killed on continental grounds. And you saw in the first one, when Adrienne Palicki did break the rules, she was assassinated at the end of the movie because she broke the rules. And basically, they're setting up the same thing. And I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be just a two-part deal, and they're going to kill off John Wick at the end of it. But the manager, Ian McShane, says, look, you are going to die for breaking this rule, but I'm going to give you 1 hour. I'll give you 1 hour to get away, and that's all I can give you. And the movie ends with the beginning of his 1 hour countdown, and he's looking around, and he sees all the assassins in New York answering their cell phones, seeing the text for John Wick's bounty, and he realizes how screwed he is, and he just starts running. And he's got his dog. His dog is still alive. They just start running through New York, and then they roll credits. So the third one is going to be, he's got no resources. He can't go to the Continental. Every secret underground resource he has, he no longer has access to because he's been excommunicated by the Secret League of Assassins. So it's going to be interesting. He's going to have no resources, and yet it's just going to be him, and he's going to have to find his way out of this problem. So I think that's going to be the end of his story. It's got to be the end of the story. Don't make it John Wick Chapter 4. If you can, just keep it with Keanu Reeves. Come on. This begs to be a trilogy, though. Just leave it at a trilogy and move on. I know that I love series. This is the one time where I'm like, do 3 and just be done, because you're not going to create a new John Wick. You're not going to have a new John Wick at least for 20 years, all right? Maybe in 20 years, people will be ready for another John Wick movie. But for now, let it be Keanu Reeves' thing, all right? When they reach a new level of computer animation or training for actors or filmmaking style and all that, then you can make a new John Wick movie. But for now, just let it be. Make a trilogy and walk away. All right? So, what do you think? Have you seen this movie? Which one do you like better, the first one or the second one? Do you like either of them? Do you love both of them? Let me know in the comment section below. This is Good Screenwriting, and I'm Trevor Meyer. See you next time.